what we got. Yeah.
What have we done? The Shock 8K on the bench of healing. You know what? We're actually using a box knife today instead of a butcher knife or a machete or a chainsaw or any of those implements of destruction. Look at it in its glory, in all its glory. Holy cow. So this is how your Shock 8K will show up. Got my Slapz audio sticker, which I love. Got the owner's manual, and I actually keep all of my owner's manuals because they have information in them that comes in handy later on. Now I refer back to them. And we have here cautions. It is forbidden to use a horn with a resistance lower than 1 ohm. Oh man, you gotta love the Chinese people and their attempt at English language. Yeah, it's all good information, but you know, please do not operate in violation of rules. If you operate in violation of rules, you may burn down the machine. Thank you. But don't want to burn down the machine. So, we got our second amplifier, and we got 4 of these dudes. These are going to go on the amplifier like so. And we'll have 4 on the bottom, and we can mount the other amplifier on top. That's going to be on fire, man. Now, the first thing we do is we're flipping this breaker open. This means that the only power that comes from here and goes to the back is from the alternator. And since the vehicle is clearly not running, we're not going to get any power going through these blocks. So I don't have to take these fuses out since there's no power going to these fuses anyway. The same thing goes for these 2 guys down here. The power coming in stops because there's no power coming into these as long as the vehicle's turned off with that breaker open. Now, having said that, I could disconnect these fuses to prevent anything from going back this direction, but again, there's no power up here, so we're okay. The thing is though, there's no fuses in between the battery and the amplifier. So when I pull these leads out, I've got to be very careful and keep the positive from touching anything and get them off of here safely and securely. We don't want anything burning down. All right, so the first thing I want to do is loosen these bolts up to where they're finger tight on the positive side. Now, disconnecting the ground is normally the first thing you do, but notice how I'm keeping my hand in between the amplifier and the wrench. And you don't want to touch the case of the wrench with the positive lead, or you know what I'm trying to say. No contact allowed. We don't want to burn down the machine. We can take the ground leads off first off the amplifier. That would be okay. That'd be cool too, but I don't really need to do that. Another thing you don't want to do is make sure that your wrench doesn't touch the case, because it's the same problem as the other wrench touching the case. So we're going to be very careful with the Allen wrench. I'm going to loosen this bad boy. Now we'll carefully pull that out of there. Pull that out of there. And holding on to these guys, we'll go down here and disconnect them from the battery. So we'll take our bolts the rest of the way off. We want to contain the contain the positive leads so we don't run into an issue with something grounding out somewhere. And we're going to get started on this thing today and tonight. I'll be working on it tonight because of the weather will be cooler. And I promised Bobby B that I would do a live stream tonight. So that's a thing. All right. We have the wires disconnected up here. Have everything disconnected here. RCA is unplugged. Got the remote wire unhooked. Let's get these bottom screws out of here, since they're the hardest ones to get at. Now we got to assemble our brackets and put these things together into one unit. And I'm probably going to time lapse this, because if not, it'd be a long process. All right, so setting this up, I made a couple of observations. Now, the top one's not attached, and the bottom one is only loosely attached, just hand tightened. But I was observing some things, and I want to show you guys what I observed. So the bottom bracket on the amplifier right here, as it tapers in, this is where your positive terminals are, and this is where your negative terminals are. This bottom bracket, though, kind of sticks out, right? And we're probably okay because of the way it tapers away, but just be aware that when you're tightening up this, you don't want your wrench to touch this. Just something to point out. We don't want to burn down the machine. So depending on the amplifier you're mounting, some things may be an issue, like these little Allen screws that hold the amplifier together really get in the way of the nut going on here. But you can get it past it, you just got to be careful and take your time. So be aware of things like that on your amplifier if you're going to be using these dual amp brackets. The thing you may want to do is get your own hardware, because the hardware it comes with has a Phillips head, and getting a Phillips head on here. Now say if we mounted it down, if we pointed it down, we could probably get to it better. Then you could put your Phillips head on this way, then the wrench down here. The bottom one you would need to mount up so that you can get to it. So this basically exactly the opposite of what I did. Though we probably sneak a Phillips screwdriver on that from this angle. But the reason I went with them this way is because getting the bolts to go in, coming up from the bottom, was just driving me crazy. So I went this direction. But pay attention to those things when you're putting it together, figuring out which direction to run the bolts, and consider getting some Allen head screws and bolts for this to replace these. Probably going to be a better setup. Another thing I would probably suggest is, since these guys only come with flat washers, and they give you lots of flat washers, they give you just enough nuts and bolts, but they give you a pretty good amount of flat washers. However, since it only comes with flat washers, I think I would recommend that you get some blue Loctite and slip on these threads when you put this together. In fact, blue Loctite's what I would suggest. You could use like a textured washer under there, like a little lock washer. But I think the Loctite would be a better solution. For now, we are bolted on though, and I was able to get them good and tight using just a standard issue screwdriver, coming in from an angle and then turning it over upside down to get the other one. And that worked out pretty good. Now again, as I said in the last video talking about this stack of amplifiers is pretty tall. We get ourselves a measurement here. We are 7.5 will just barely clear. I'd like to have it closer to 8. And on our door, up here where the amplifier is going to be closest, it's going to come all the way up to there. They bump that window up just a little bit. So about where that top of that amplifier is going to be. We got about 8 1/8. To the inside of the glass. Let's go a little higher. And now at that point we're at 7 3/4. But the amp won't quite be that high. It's going to be really close. That's the narrowest possible spot. And we're at 7 7.5. It ain't going to go quite that high. So that tells me exactly where the amplifier is going to have to go. Because right now, at this point right here, level with the wires, we're at 7.5. So the amp's going to have to stop right in here somewhere. And two of these wires are going to have to reach over and go into that amplifier. I already thought about that. That's going to be tight, but I think it'll work. So the amp's going to sit right in here, right in this area right here. And it should clear the glass. Knock on glass that we don't burn the machine down. So from the area where the amp's going to go, we need to be around 2 foot or inside 2 feet. And what I mean by that is 2 feet after coming out with the wires. So that area. Now, one subscriber mentioned that I could stack these, and that would eliminate wires from crossing paths. The problem with that is, if I've got this one mounted and then I build a bridge, put this one on top of it or whatever, getting to the ones on the bottom will be impossible without taking the whole thing apart. I don't fancy all that, so we're going to have to do it this way and figure it out. And my wires need to stop about where the edge of this trim is, somewhere back in there, in order for everything to fit. So waste not, want not. I got the 4 wires I was using, plus I went into my bin and I dug out some pieces that I already have lugs on them that I can probably cut down, relug, and get what I need out of this without having to bust out new wire and new lugs too much. All right, guys, got the heat gun, got a bunch of scraps, got terminals, got the crimper set up, got my cutters, not my favorite ones, but those will work. Got all the stuff we need, some gloves. I don't know why they're there, but we got them. Also, this black sleeving. We got all the stuff we need to make this happen. I'm constructing a temporary jig so that whenever I set everything up, it'll already be, the wires be trained properly. Now I could do something like this. Have the grounds come down to here. Have the positives come down to here over the top of it. Problem is, like I said, being able to get to these would be impossible without taking these out of the way. And then also I gotta build something to where I have a gap under here so I can run the feeder wires underneath the block to the ground side. I don't know. I'm going over ideas right now. All right, so we did a live show and I made all the wires and I got them hooked up. They're not finished, it's not done, but that's the gist of how it's going to look when it's installed. For now, I got to clean up my mess and go get something to eat because I've been out here. It's 11 o'clock. I've been out here since like 5 o'clock this afternoon. Yeah, I'm tired and I'm hungry. I haven't eaten today.